Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Thursday, May the 24th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second Daily Dose of Happy for the day. And it's actually the last Daily Dose of Happy before you get the ebook, Your Daily Dose of Happy, which will be launched tomorrow morning. So we're on the eve of the launch. Yeah, how about that? That's pretty exciting stuff. It's amazing. I mean, we started this as like an idea, 5-6 months ago, and here it is. It's actually come. It's actually arrived. Wow, what a thing.
Yeah, I was looking up in my date book, and my other book came out the first week of December, which was my second week on the podcast with you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And you had told me it was after I told you all about how, I was participating in this co-authoring experience, with this other publisher, and how it happened and how we became #1 international bestsellers on Amazon. You told me that's what inspired you for this.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, partly because I just thought it was a brilliant marketing concept. You have all these different authors who are all doing the marketing together, so you get like the bulk effort, so to speak. And I also thought, well, what if they're all law of attraction authors? Because not only do you get their physical effort, but they all know the importance of energy, so you get the energetic thing too, So, whoa, I like that idea a lot.
So my other book came out 6 months ago, so that's the timing on that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was the inspiration. That, well, also, I believe Cindy had one too, and the two of you told me about your similar experiences within like a week of each other. So when you get it from two different directions, even I can't miss that signal.
That's funny. Even you can't miss it.
Even I can't miss that one. But yeah, it was a great inspiration to get, and I got really excited about it. So, I mean, I don't really know what will happen, but I'm anticipating good things are going to happen. So, hey.
I know it'll be good. I know that we had put out a really big goal for lots of listeners by the end of 2018.
Yep.
I threw out 1 million listeners.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
I couldn't remember if that was your number, my number, or our number. But anyway, we were saying 1 million listeners.
It's 1 million either way that you look at it.
Since this weekend, we should tip the 50,000 listener mark.
Right.
I would say in order for us to grow to 1 million in the next 7 months, we're going to need like a sonic boom of, infusion.
Right.
And I'm expecting that this book is going to do that. It's going to be the thing that infuses, a lot of energy and excitement, and something that's passed from one person to the next, and people start listening because they're really desiring to surround themselves with positive messages and something that's not just trash talk or, junk radio. I mean, I know junk radio has its place, but, you and I both know that in the world of law of attraction, what you put into your thoughts is what you attract more of.
Right.
And if you want more junk, then continue to listen to junk. But if you want more positive messages, you want to listen to positive messages and really put your heart into hearing it instead of just, it's on in the background, I'm not really paying attention. Because even if you have something in the background, if you're not feeling what it is, you're not going to be broadcasting it. That's not the signal you send out to law of attraction. So when people listen to the podcast and really listen, which, by the way, I think listening while you're driving or while you're like doing dishes or doing something mundane like that is the best time for you to really sink your teeth into what we're talking about.
I think that's true. In fact, this morning, during this morning's podcast with Joel Elston, Joel tells me that he goes through over 52 books a year, and he does it through audiobooks. He'll play audiobooks. Other people will wake up in the morning and they'll turn on, one of the morning TV shows or something like that. He'll start playing one of his audiobooks while he's doing his morning routine. Or when he's driving to his office, he'll play his audiobook then. And so he'll go through, he says he actually goes through more than a book a week. Can you imagine that? But he's getting all this great information just by listening to all these different audiobooks, which makes me think, at some point, probably pretty soon, we should probably make an audio version of this book. Because, I mean, stories, you want to have those told. That's what storytelling is all about.
You know what, Walt, that is a really great idea.
Yeah,
I love it. Let's just make that happen.
Okay, sounds good to me. I mean, what we
You
have
know.
to do is we have to volunteer or have volunteers to be readers, hopefully people who, can be understood. That's always
Well,
helpful.
maybe the author can read their chapter.
I thought about that. Maybe we offer that. The only concern that I have is not everybody has recording equipment. And so I mean,
Okay.
we could tie some people into like the Zoom platform, and we could probably try to do that. But and
Well,
also some people
well,
just aren't really. I don't mean to be disrespectful to our authors because I think they're all wonderful. But in general, in the general population, not everybody has good voice for doing an audiobook. You have to have a voice
I
that,
totally
that
agree.
listens well.
No,
So
I totally agree. But that's definitely something we can talk about. Because I
yeah,
think that would be another really awesome addendum to, or another product offering, since we already have the content. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's another great way. Because, where you were talking about Joel, how he listens to stuff. Well, how I have integrated so much of the information I know is basically doing the same thing.
Oh really? Oh okay.
Um, oh yeah. I mean, now years ago, I was doing a large stage show when I was a costume designer, and it was about an hour and 45-minute drive each way, and I did it every Saturday and every Friday and every Saturday night. And so that's like 3.5 hours of listening time just on Friday and Saturday. But every time I got in the car, I listened to something. And there were some days I literally spent the whole day driving from place to place to place while I was shopping for certain supplies. And back in those days, I was listening to Tony Robbins.
Mm.
So, I mean, I can quote so many things from Tony Robbins. Because you know me, I don't listen once. I listen
That's
2,
true.
3, 4, 5,
3 times.
22 times.
The only person I know who
Um,
listens to the entire Masters series of Abraham Hicks 3 times a disc. Like, wow.
oh yeah, I'm still doing that. I just am not in my car as often, but when I'm in the car, I'm listening to Abraham, and I get to the end, it's like time to do it again. I get to the end, time to do it again. But that's
Amazing.
the best way I know to just really take in good information, because when you're driving, you're in an autopilot situation.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
We know how to drive, and if we're going to the same places that we've been before, it doesn't take a whole lot of thought power, but it allows us to focus on
Mm,
what we're listening to.
it does. Yeah. That's true.
And so, yeah, I think it's an awesome way to learn, and that's why I think our podcast is really best listened to when somebody really has the time to focus and listen. Because even I listen to our stuff sometimes, and if I get distracted because I'm trying to multitask, I'll go, I totally missed that concept. Because sometimes we talk about stuff that's like, it's not lighthearted,
No, it's true.
and you have to really listen and pay attention so you
Yeah.
can follow the thread as we're talking. So
That's what I like
anyway, well,
about our show.
now I'm all excited about doing an audio version of the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? I like that idea. Maybe talk about it among the co-hosts because the co-hosts we all have good radio type voices. Maybe we divvy it up among ourselves or something. But it would be really good to have an audiobook. And I do think it's important that if you have a male author, then you have a male reading the book, and if you have a female author, you have a female voice reading the story. So but as long as we can stick to that, I think that would work.
I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you heard it here first. We have an audiobook in the mix. It's not out yet, but it is coming.
Well, and just to kind of let our listeners in on some of the conversation you and I have in particular before the show or mostly after the show is, the first 3 months of doing the show together, I felt like you and I spent time dreaming. We spent time coming up with new ideas and new goals and new things that we wanted to reach for.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the book was one of them, and it's happening.
Yeah.
It's already published. I mean, that's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, it is. And you and I have an advantage. I mean, I have a total of 5 co-hosts that I do the show with, but you're the only one that I do it with daily, Monday through Friday. The others are, they're kind of dividing up the rest of the schedule a bit. So I'll talk to Joel once a week. I'll talk to David once a week. But I get you 5 days a week. So you're right. You and I have done most of the dreaming because we are the ones who are talking every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a cool thing.
Whatever we talk about on the show, it's like there's a continuum. Like we want to keep going after the show, and then it causes us to kind of spin up new thoughts, new ideas,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like my life has expanded faster than it has ever expanded in the 6 months that you and I have been doing the show together.
Wow.
Because one, we talk on the show about my stuff. And two, you and I talk after the show sometimes about my stuff. And then three, I'm so excited, I'll talk to anybody who will listen to me about my stuff. And so I'm constantly spinning it and moving it in new directions. And it's very exciting. It's very exciting. So I highly, I'm going to put in a plug for individuals to find somebody in their life that they can talk to about the things that they want to create and manifest. And it may just start out as a friendship where you're just chit-chatting about stuff. But when you start to use it deliberately, when you start to allow your conversations to be deliberate, woohoo, you can really expand and multiply your desires and see them come into fruition.
And if you really want to have fun with it, get another person to talk with you on a semi-regular basis. And you don't need to actually record anything. Use a pen like it's a microphone and pretend you're doing a podcast together. It's amazing how fun it is to do a podcast. And even if you're just pretending, it's still fun. I mean, that's actually the way I practiced for my first podcast with Louise. The two of us, we just kind of role played it a little bit. Like, well, so what are we going to do in the podcast? We just kind of talked it out like we were actually doing the podcast. So it's fun.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Fun. It's very fun.
Isn't it? I mean, it just keeps me going every single time that I do one of these. It's like a big lift in the day, and I get it twice a day, so I like that. Yeah. Another idea. I had another idea about the book. Before we leave the book topic, we talk about doing an audiobook. I wonder, how if you have a book launch in the old school way, where the author would go to like the largest Barnes and Noble in Manhattan or something like that and do a book signing. And especially if it was a well-known author, they'd get an audience there. And so they would read from their book, right? It would be like, here's the introduction to the book. J.K. Rowling did that with her 7th book from the Harry Potter series. And there's like the people with like a mass auditorium of people listening to her do it. But the point is, she's reading the first few pages of the book, and I remember seeing the video of it. All the little kids in the audience, and they got this storybook reading look on their faces, like, what's she going to say next? It was great. But it makes me think. I wonder if perhaps we shouldn't be doing some reading from the book during the launch that's coming up starting tomorrow.
We could.
I mean, it's an idea, something that we're be thinking about. I know I'd be wanting to read some of my stories, so just something to kind of toss out there. But if doing an audiobook is a good idea, maybe doing a reading from the book during the launch should be a good idea.
Well, let's talk about it after the show today and see how we bounce that around and see what comes of it.
Yeah, sounds good to me. What were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you?
Well, I think I have a question.
Okay.
And I just want to throw it out there, either for you to maybe give me some insight or for me to have a cathartic moment and get my own. Who knows?
Okay.
But I was telling you right before, the show, I was, doing my job, and something came to my attention where our company rolled out a new program, and they rolled it out in such a way that it left much to be desired. And it's not very functional, and it requires a lot of manual effort from every one of our 15,000 employees. Mm-hmm. And the chances of people catching what I just learned today is slim to none, because 2 weeks ago I talked to Help Desk, and they told me and showed me how to do it, but there was still a piece missing. So today I had a level 2 tech support call me, and they told me that what the Help Desk told me before was completely wrong.
Oh, wow.
And so that in itself made me crazy, because I'm thinking about 15,000 people in our company.
Yeah.
And if I didn't understand the written communication, and then Help Desk gave me the wrong information, and now level 2 took 2 weeks to get back to me, I said to him, I was so appreciative of the tech's help. I'm like, he's only been here 5 weeks. I'm like, I realize you're not responsible for this thing being rolled out, but unfortunately you're stuck with having to answer questions by people. And I said, I don't want you to close this ticket. even though you answered, you took care of the other stuff we were needing to work on. But I said, I want an answer to the question, which is, how is it that something this incomplete of a program could have been rolled out by this company? And I said, I don't care if this has to go to the top of our food chain, the top of the company. I want this ticket to remain open until it gets answered. And he said, well, actually, I want this question answered too. I'm like,
I don't blame him.
Well,
yeah.
You take it to your manager, and if she has to take it to her manager, and so on and so forth. There's only 6 levels in our company, so it's not like when I worked at another company where I couldn't even tell how many levels there were between me and the CEO.
Right.
But I wouldn't say I got angry, but I did get very firm, where I escalated my personal energy, where it's as though I harnessed my personal power when I spoke. Now, if somebody was listening to me, they would go, whoa, she meant business. Mm. But I don't think anybody would have said I was rude or inconsiderate or that I was angry. I was just very firm. And, it's kind of like right before I called you, I had just hung up with help desk. So It was kind of like, woo, time to switch energy.
Yeah, right.
Because that other energy was very big and powerful within me. And so this is where it kind of leads me to some questions. Like, what do you do with that kind of energy? I've heard other people, talk about, like, if they had some horrible thing happen to them, use that to fuel yourself to create something wonderful. I've never known how to do that. So, like in this situation, the only thing I know to do is to allow it to dissipate and move into something more pleasant. Not that the other felt horrible, but it wasn't my happy zone. Mm. And so I was just curious, have you ever known what to do with energy that's real powerful within you, whether it's negative or not, so that you can come into a place of calm, and maybe calm's not even the right word, but just so that you can use that energy? Because I feel like I had amassed really cool energy that was really potent and powerful, kind of, okay, the picture that comes to me is like not a nuclear plant, but, like one of those giant bodies of water that they use to turn electricity. I don't even know what that's called. It might be a nuclear plant.
A generating plant, nuclear generating plant.
That's it, yeah. It's like I see that, and that's what it feels like. The energy in me is just really big and powerful, and I'm like, what can I create with that? Do you want to plug me into like the grid and I'll create electricity?
Wendy woman.
But I don't know. I mean, any thoughts about what do you do when you have all that energy running through you? How do you use it in a productive way? Because the thought of just dissipating it just to let it drain out, it seems like, what a waste. Because it took a lot. It was fun.
Yeah. I think it depends on what I want to do with it. I mean, first thing I have to decide is, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to use it? Do I want to dissipate it? Do I want to throw it off? Do I want to send it off to somebody else? Do I want to make it manifest $1 million? What is it I want to do with it? I got to figure out what that is. And then once I know what that is, I think it's easier to decide what to do next. I know one of my favorite things to do when I have the presence of mind. I don't always have the presence of mind. But when I do have the presence of mind, whenever I have something where there's some sort of big energetic buildup, positive, negative, whatever, the first impulse I have is to find a way to laugh. Knowing that once I laugh, any kind of resistance that's built in is going to start going away. The energy may stay, but the resistance part will go away, just because laughter helps remove resistance. Again, what am I going to do with it after the laugh? I don't know. It depends what I want to accomplish. But you ask what I would do, my first thought usually is just to laugh, just to get rid of some resistances.
Well, because like now, as I just talked it through a little bit, I feel like I have, picture a live wire, something that has a lot of power in it. And I would love to plug it into something that has great meaning for me.
Okay. Yep.
I don't know that I have the answer to this. This is just, I'm in an exploratory moment.
Yeah, sure. Hey, we do lots of exploring. We explore some really wacky stuff on the show. So this is right in range. It's not a problem.
So it's like, if I could find a way And maybe I know of it and I just hadn't thought of it in this moment, but like if I could take this, because what I explained just now was I wasn't angry.
Mm-hmm.
I harnessed, which is kind of like focusing. I focused my personal power into the conversation I had with this tech guy because I wanted him to recognize the validity and the seriousness of what I was asking and how I was coming from an internal place of authority. I wasn't coming from, I'm just a pipsqueak and I'm just going, how come this is happening? I mean, I'm like, I want answers and I'm serious about wanting answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way I see it, I'm a stakeholder in this company. No, I'm not like part of the profit sharing, but I'm a stakeholder because I've been here 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have given a lot of who I am into how this company operates, trying to do the best thing at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I deserve an answer. And even when I got off the phone, I thought, wow, I just acted as though I was the CEO, wanting heads to roll. I want answers. And I thought, you know what? I fully expect and anticipate an answer.
Well, that much I think we can predict with confidence because we know with the law of attraction, whatever energy you put out, you're going to get something similar back. So what the answer is going to be, we can't say, but you're going to get some kind of a response.
Yeah. And it's like, and there was no resistance in my asking. It was like, no, I expect an answer. However it comes, I expect an answer. I don't expect somebody to just go, who the heck is she? Why should we answer her? It's like, no, I expect an answer. And I will follow up on it until I get one. I've already put something on somebody's calendar for tomorrow to discuss this because the moment I had that energy, I went, okay, I can't just let this die. I have to take action on this. This is an actionable thing. So that was the first thing I did. But now so that was about my job and how I can help my company based on me harnessing my power. But
you still have the energy.
I want to use it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking Project X, my new financial streams is really very present in my energy. And it's like, okay, I want to plug it in. Maybe I just say that. I want to plug this in and all the energy I'm feeling on my personal power, I want it to be directed toward my new income stream so that I can see the next piece manifest in three-dimensional reality within the next week, where I can see something that feels really solid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't even feel like giving it a time limit. I just want to say, I want something new and solid and bigger than what I've had before.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
I've just imagined plugging myself into that question.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what comes about. But actually, that felt really good.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, that's half the battle right there. In fact, I was wondering to what degree you were, refining the energy, because as much as we like to say, well, this energy is, positive energy, this is negative energy, whatever. Actually, most of our energies are kind of a mixture. There's like a predominance of one and a predominance of other, but none of them are perfectly pure most of the time. So, even in a case like this where you have this really strong energy, there might be some in there that's like a little bit negative energy to be filtered out. And so I'm thinking, well, we know that one of the most important things to do whenever we want to deliberately attract something is to get ourselves into the high-flying place first and then start doing our imagining and building our beliefs and yada, yada, yada. Well, you already have the energy. The energy is already big. Maybe part of it is just, kind of doing like a little filtering thing and make sure you got all the impurities out, all the negative stuff that you really don't want to be in there, and just have the pure positive energy left over. And then reiterate what you just said.
I don't have to filter it out. Law of attraction will filter it out.
Okay.
In other words, if there's something that wasn't part of pure positive energy, then a speed bump will show up. I don't have to seek it. I never have to seek it. All I know is this felt powerful and big, and I wanted to turn it in the direction that I just chose, which is, some kind of manifestation in a very palatable way. To stop and look for impurities in that literally gums up the energy flow.
Okay.
That felt in other words, looking for something negative within my positive energy is like a contradiction. That just didn't feel right to me at all. So.
All right. Well, if that doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. I mean, simple as that.
Well, and I've said this before, I never recommend seeking resistance or negative energy. if there is any on the path toward what you desire, it will show up. We don't have to go seeking it out or asking for it. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah, I have no doubt.
Okay. Sorry, I stopped you in the middle of a flow, but that to me was like,
no, that's fine.
That felt really important to say, which is, oh no, this is a powerful moving energy stream, and to stop and throw a stick in it to try to filter it just felt like, whoa, no, can't go there. That'll slow down the works.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, if that seriously, it's what works for you that matters. Whether or not that would work for me is not relevant, I don't think. I mean, for myself, I actually would prefer to kind of stir it for a while and see what it feels like to stir it. And, is there everything about it that I like? Then great, I like it. If there's part of it that I'm recognizing, that doesn't feel so good, I want to filter it out, but I want to keep the rest of it. And to me, that's not a contradiction. But that's what works for me. If it doesn't work for you, I don't want you to go that way.
Well,
that would be the last thing I have in mind.
Giant nuclear thing of water that is so powerful, you can't stir it.
Oh, okay.
It's big. It's big. It's
can't
powerful.
Stir it. I like it.
It will knock you over. It'll knock me over. It'll knock anybody over. And it'll run over boulders if they're in the way. I mean, that's how big this energy is.
Okay, everybody get out of the way. There's a Wendy energy on its way. This is a level 3 Wendy energy alert.
I'll tell you, I didn't apologize, but I kept saying over and over to this technician I was talking to, please don't think I said anything to you that was of a negative nature. I was just sharing my thoughts, but it has nothing to do with you, because I didn't want him to walk away going, oh my God, she's scary. But he did say, well, I want to know that too. Where in the beginning, he was just saying, I don't know. So I'm like, I think my energy actually shifted his perspective, because he's like, well, now I want to know that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
sure.
oh, cool. Now he's flowing with me instead of just kind of hanging out, because I could have rolled over.
Well, that's actually good, because now you basically are in the co-creating space, right? The two of you are trying to create this new answer, this new understanding about how did this insanity happen and what can we do to change it.
Oh, insanity. That's a good word. That's what I felt like I was experiencing. Like, this was a piece of insanity that I was experiencing today with this thing that the company rolled out. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah. I get that every once in a while with software, because I've done not so much a lot of software development, but web development. I've done a lot of web development. And so I'm really sensitive to some of the products, some of the releases, some of the things that developers put out. And a lot of them for me are head scratchers. Like, I don't want to pick on a particular product, so I'm not going to try and name an example. Well, I can tell you about something that's going on in my life. I have developers working on some software that will help my wife's gardening business. Basically, it's software that helps with scheduling and building the calendar, so we know where all our gardeners are going to go, and what jobs they're going to work on, and where they're going to work on it together, and what supplies they're going to need. And it also does their timekeeping, so it's like a built-in time clock, so to speak. And ultimately, it's going to also add in estimating for the customer before we do the job. Okay, here's how much we think it's going to cost, and invoicing, and it's going to kind of incorporate all of it together. But it's still very much in the first round of development, so right now it's just the timesheets and scheduler. And the developers I've been working with they're okay. They're not the best I've ever worked with. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we just didn't have a lot of money to work with, so I had to be a little bit conservative with who I would hire in terms of cost. But nevertheless, I mean, they know what they're doing, but there are times when I kind of scratch my head. Like, for instance, when they gave me the very first, what I'll call alpha version prototype. And what I mean by that, people have heard of betas, right? A beta software. The beta software basically means that it's been through some internal testing, but customers haven't used it yet. So we don't want to say it's a full release yet, because as much as we the developers tried to come up with it, we don't know if actually we met exactly what the customers need. Does this actually work the way we think it's going to work? So that's what beta testing is for. Alpha testing, that's where it's being tested by the developers themselves. As they're going along, they're trying things. Okay, I built this thing. Does it work? Yes, it works. Go on to the next thing. And they had me doing some of their alpha testing with them, which is that's one of the first head scratchers for me. Because for me, if I'm doing a project for somebody, the last thing I want my customer to do is to help me do the alpha testing. I really don't want that at all. I mean, that to me, that's in my own world, that's a way to leave a bad taste in the mouth of a customer. So I would never have done that, but that's what they did with me, and I was okay with it because I have some background with it. But it still was a head scratcher for me. And then what they rolled out to me, it was very clear to me that they hadn't even tested it themselves. So we're not even talking alpha testing; we're talking like no testing. So I'm thinking,
wow, and and you as the customer really shouldn't have been brought in yet.
Yeah, exactly. So I was dealing with that scenario, which sounds kind of similar to what you were dealing with. And I know that my reaction was, well, okay, I know what it's like to do development. So I'm just going to put on my developer's hat and I'm going to go that way. And I think that did help me to help move the process along as well as it could have moved along. It did bring along a few interesting little speed bumps, in your words, that came up along the way. One of them is, if you ever hire somebody to do custom software for you, I thoroughly recommend you do it this way. We agreed upon a price. I put the price into escrow, and the price is the terms of it are that the full price gets delivered when the full product is delivered to me, and not divvied out in between. And I do it very deliberately that way because I've learned the hard way that if you don't do it that way, you can end up kind of like with somebody, who hires the contractor to build their house, and the contractor gets 80% done and then never finishes it because he's got most of the money anyway, which is not a good situation to be in. Well, I learned don't do that with software development. And do you know that as these guys were having me do their alpha testing with them, they were every few days they're asking us, we've got families to feed. Can you release some of the money to us? I'm thinking, you guys got a lot to learn about dealing with customers. That was my first thought. My second thought was, sorry guys, not a chance in hell I'm going to do that. And I didn't say it to them that way. I said it to them in a much more professional way. But
and point 3 is just cut and dry. No.
Yeah, it's just a plain no.
No.
And it was a non-emotional no. It's like, nope, sorry, But, and this is the really interesting one. The last time that they did that was about a week ago. And we are nearing the end of the project, so we're really close. They had, at that point, I think about 4 or 5 bug-type issues that still needed to be worked on. And they were the hardest ones, the ones they kept putting off. But there were like 4 or 5 left, and they asked me one more time, can you release some money? And my response was no, but we're really close to doing the final test. I'm willing to work with you to get it done fast if you're willing to do it. We can get this knocked out in a day or two. And I didn't hear anything for 48 hours until 48 hours later, they said, well, try this, and then try this. And it's just been dragging along one day at a time. Once again, reinforcing for me, you don't release the money. You just don't do it. Because they'll just play any kind of game that they can in order to play on your sympathies, but they're not interested in actually finishing the job unless you're holding the whole price over their heads. It's a weird thing. So I'm not sure exactly what my point is, other than it seems somewhat similar to your story. Obviously, mine's quite different because it isn't within one company, but there's a similarity there because I'm dealing with the same kind of gobsmacked kind of what are you doing feeling that you're dealing with. And it's a bizarre feeling. It's a very strange thing to be in.
Well, I work so much with information, my own inner guidance, understanding law of attraction principles, and I look at this and I go, okay, so what in me attracted this? What's the vibration that I have going that would cause this to come to me? And the first thing that comes to mind is something I've been aware of for a long time, which is I love to be a part of making a difference. I have a natural, curious mind, and there have been several conversations I've had with coworkers in the last couple of days that have brought this to mind, because I had somebody who used to be on my team, but then they revamped all the territory lines, and now she's been on another team for a couple of years. And when I got an instant message from her and she said, can we talk on the phone? Now, I know she calls me when she has gone through everybody on her team and she can't get the answer she's looking for. And so that's exactly what she said to me when she called me. And she told me all the different departments and people that she talked to. And she said, Wendy, you're kind of my last resort. And she was only apologizing because I'm not on her team anymore. And I said, I certainly don't mind, that you called me. So tell me what's going on. And she told me, and I said, okay, so here's what I see. And I didn't know if I could answer her question because there was such a huge buildup. Like, well, if anybody knows the answer, it would be you. And I'm like, oh crap, I hate hearing that because what if I let her down?
Right. Yeah.
But she told me what was going on, and I said, I don't have a definitive answer, but I said I think I can add some more pieces to the puzzle that might give you a little bit of clarity. And so as I talked, she went, okay, I'm starting to see this. It was like a 45-minute conversation. And she said, I went to the appropriate person on my team, and that person just kind of gave me a pat answer. And I said, well, the truth is the job that person and I both share is pretty cut and dry. Do this, do this, do this. And I said, but the reason I know more is because I'm very curious. And I said, it's never acceptable to me to just do what I'm supposed to do, but when I see an anomaly, just overlook it. I stop and ask the question, well, why is this anomaly here? And I pick up the phone and I start calling people from other departments and start asking questions. And really how I've gotten a reputation, a good reputation, that I have at my company is because I know so many things that nobody else knows in my business unit. And it's because I'm really, really curious. And the gal I was talking to yesterday, she said, well, I guess that's where you and I are the same, because she said, I'm really curious. And yeah, I could have just let this go. But something in me said, no, I want to get to the bottom of it. And I said, that's kind of the world I live in. I'm always curious. I always want to get to the bottom of something. So how today's scenario was attracted to, like, how did I attract it? Well, first of all, I'm always curious to understand how things work. And so this really did kind of get into the nitty gritty that most people are not willing to ask the questions. Most people are willing to just go, well, help desk was no help, and then move on. And I can't let things go at that level. I mean, I could.
Sure you could.
But I actually enjoy getting under the hood and asking the deeper questions. And I'm willing to say, and I understand you may not have the answer, but can you tell me who then does have the answer? Because I really want to know this. I want to unlock the mysteries here. I don't want it to be a mystery anymore. And so that's part of how I attracted that to myself. I think there's another piece, which is, I'm really wanting to exit this company. And I've been seeing some things for a very long time that no longer match who I am. When I came to the company 11 years ago, the person who was over our business unit, I felt like I had a kinship to. I mean, I've only met him a couple times, but it was like his philosophy and how he wanted to do business was very much in alignment of how I like to do business.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, the company was only 3,000 employees, and depending on where you come from, that could be big or small, but I like to work with small companies where there's not a whole lot of people between you and the person at the top of the food chain. I like to be able to kind of know who the other players are. I don't like it something where it's so huge you have no clue. And the person that was in charge of our business unit, he was no longer a match for our CEO because he was a little too do it by the seat of his pants kind of way. And our CEO wanted to button things down and, do it in a little bit more structured way. And so when he was no longer the head of our business unit, immediately I started to feel the clamps on me. Like, this is not a match for me anymore. All of a sudden now there's all these things where you have to do this and you have to do this. And oh my God, there's so many rules and so many metrics. And it just took what I considered the freedom of doing our job and doing it well away. And that didn't feel good to me. And so this thing having been rolled out in a way that to me is so unfathomable, unacceptable, it's just another piece of they're not a match for me.
Mm. Oh, yeah, I can see
They're
that.
really, it's just not a match for me. There's so many things going on in the company that's not a match. And I talk to so many of the veterans that have been around as long as me that are like, I said to the lady yesterday, I said, this is not the company I signed up for. She said, me neither. And it's not like we're trying to throw the company under the bus.
No,
It's
I
just
understand what
that,
you mean.
companies shift and change, and,
They do.
everything in life changes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, how do I say this? Sometimes it's like if we're part of a group or part of a project and we've been with it for a long time, sometimes it requires us to leave because it doesn't fit who we are, and that project needs new blood to come in order to give it life. And I won't say that I have exhausted my usefulness at this company, but I will say that I'll bet that there is somebody who would love to have my job that could really bring a lot of new, fresh blood to it and excitement and exuberance that me being a veteran and knowing what the company once was and feeling like the lifeblood has been drained out of it for me, they wouldn't be having that experience because it'd be all new for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And you don't often think about how the company will be better off without you, but I think they'd be better off without me.
No, I understand your point. I think there's also a lesson in here for CEOs, because what you described with this particular CEO of yours is a very common experience these days. There are a lot of CEOs who are jumping onto what I will call the analytics bandwagon. And they want all these metrics put into place. They want all of this, make sure we are counting this and counting that, and we're telling this and telling that, so that we always know exactly what's going on within the company. And it's understandable. I understand the value of analytics. I use it in marketing. I mean, analytics are very, very valuable. But there's also a cautionary tale going on here, and it's one that I don't think CEOs would do themselves any favors by overlooking. The cautionary tale is that the law of attraction works for CEOs just like it does for everybody else. When you put out there that analytics are actually more important than creativity, you are basically saying, I don't want creativity back. And that's a dangerous thing, because ultimately, if your company stops its creative flow, it will die. I don't care how big your company is. If you stop the creative flow, it will die. So you have to be a little careful whenever you do things like try to apply analytics. You have to make sure that those analytics don't block the creative flow. And some CEOs are better than others in terms of accomplishing that. But the bottom line is, if you don't make that a priority, if you don't make keeping the creative flow a priority, you're setting yourself up for a massive law of attraction response that you won't like.
Well, and yet, whether it's my CEO or another CEO, if what they're looking at is trying to please, let's say, their shareholders or their board of directors so that they can get a big bonus, if their goal is, if their prize, the eye that they have is on the prize of getting a bonus, it doesn't really matter if the company is creative as long as they meet the requirements that the board has for them to get the bonus. Law of attraction can certainly provide that for them.
It's true to a point, but the problem with that is that it's short-term thinking. And yes,
well, it may be.
It will certainly.
Law of attraction is always going to respond to what somebody is putting out.
It does. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. And here's the question that I have for the people who follow that path, because a lot of people do follow that path. I previously worked for companies that I left because I saw the CEOs following that path. And I can tell you that of all the companies that I worked for, while I was there, they all did well. When I left, all but 2 failed entirely after I left. And in every case, I was able successfully to predict that they would fail. And the ones that remained became a shell of themselves. And why did they become a shell of themselves? Because they followed short-term thinking. Now, did the CEOs get their big bonuses? Yeah, they did. But the companies suffered. The companies suffered while the CEOs got their big bonuses. And the shareholders applauded them with those big bonuses. And then the shareholders got basically the shaft. Because this wonderful little machine that had created all this short-term money, suddenly the stock prices started to fall because the value of the company had dropped because of the short-term thinking. So
now here
I don't know.
curious,
I don't know how you want to shuffle this out. Maybe you want to say, well, that's not the CEO's responsibility. I disagree.
Well, no,
I think that is the CEO's responsibility.
Here's my question: is your perception, looking at the scenario where they got the bonus and then the company fell apart and died, are you putting any kind of assessment on that's good or that's bad?
I'm saying not that it's good or that it's bad. I'm projecting, and I have to admit this is my evaluation of it. I'm projecting that that's not what they had in mind.
Okay, and that could very well be. And I like to look at it from all data is just information. And so, okay, that particular strategy may not be good for the long-term effect of a company surviving, but did the CEO get what he wanted? Yeah.
In the short
term,
that's
the only point. And that's the only point I'm making. And even if it was in the short term, maybe he only needed it in the short term because maybe that's what gave him something to launch the next something.
That may be true.
In his personal life, in his business life, whatever. Because I watch a lot of programs that have really deep strategy embedded in the storylines.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to pay attention to that because to me that's intelligent writing and it causes me to think and it's very thought-provoking. So it's very yummy to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at, because I'm watching one program where, the CEO is doing some stuff because he's very ego-driven. He had been thrown in jail and his reputation was damaged, and now he's out of jail. They dropped the charges, even though he's guilty. And now he's trying to prove himself. So he's now undermining some things that had been put in place while he had to be removed from the company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, this is kind of interesting. So now we have multiple entities vying for who's right, who's wrong. Everybody has a different opinion. And I think it's fascinating because it's like this television show to me is like a microcosm of our entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Because as individuals, we don't always check in with the whole rest of the world, on a global platform to see if they like our idea. We just do what we want to do. And we, if you're really working deliberately with law of attraction, you're going to get what you desire. And what you desire may actually really piss off somebody else, and vice versa.
Sure. But there's also there's another factor here, and I wanted to get to it. Okay. And let's go back to the CEO who got his bonus, right? That's all that mattered was getting the bonus. Here's the funny thing. The law of attraction is really good at delivering precisely what it is that we ask for. And not just the one part of it that we focus on, but everything that we ask for, regardless of whether we were consciously asking for it. As long as we're putting the energy out, that's all the law of attraction needs.
Of course, depending on the level of the purity of our energy.
Well, even with impure energy, you put out what we'll call negative energy because it's impure, you're going to get something negative back. It's still going to come back in some way. It's just a question of what's coming back.
Right.
Well, the same thing is true of that CEO. So the CEO got, in fact, I'm going to think of one particular case, one particular company that I worked for that I won't name. It's not important who the company is. But it was actually a company where, believe it or not, an intern became the CEO. She was an intern to the previous CEO. She learned what he did so well that she convinced the board to make her the next CEO. And then she basically dismantled the company, got a very, very large bonus, and retired. Now, that sounds like a real win-win scenario for the female CEO, right? I mean, she made out like a bandit. But here's the thing that's missing from that story. What's missing is all of the evaluation of what happened is done monetarily. Do we know, for instance, that after she retired, that she felt really great about what she did at that company? Does she feel like she had a great legacy there? Or does she feel like there's unfinished business? And were there other consequences? And I don't mean that in terms of blame. I mean in terms of stuff that followed. Were there other things that happened that perhaps produced a result along with it that wasn't quite what she had in mind? See, it's not just about the money is what my point is. There's a lot more to life than just the money. And all of that energy that comes that you put out there in the way that that particular CEO put it out there, it didn't just come back in terms of money. It came back in a lot of different ways, and it came back over some period of time. And we don't know what that whole story was. I certainly don't know what that whole story was. I am willing to bet, however, that part of that energy that came back to her was energy she didn't like, because she created a situation that also made it difficult for other people. So, of course, the energy had to come back to be difficult for her in some way.
Okay, so how are you saying it had to be that it would be difficult for her in some way?
Because unless she is a person who is, well, even then, no, in some way there's going to be a difficulty. I can't say exactly what the nature of the difficulty is going to be. It's going to be different from one person to the next.
Difficulty would only come to her under the circumstances that she resonates to some kind of vibration that would create difficulty.
I am submitting that the way that she basically dismantled the company created difficulty and had an energy that was difficult.
Okay. I don't know her. I don't know the circumstances, and I don't know what the energy is. But I do know that every result only shows up because there has been a broadcast of some kind of feeling or energy that has gone from an individual, and that's what comes back to the individual.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
And the only thing we don't know is we don't know what the nature of all that was that she got back. We don't even know what the nature was of all the energy she put out. I mean, we only see a little piece of the story.
And I guess the part that, for me, I like to remove from how I articulate something is by putting a judgment on whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Even saying the word dismantled is a judgment. I mean, well, it's a fact, but oftentimes somebody thinks that oftentimes if I'm hearing somebody dismantle the company, they're saying it like it's a bad thing. Well, who said it had to be bad or good? It just was. And I personally like to take the judgment out and just look at everything in terms of data when it's not my own personal stuff. Even when it is my stuff, I like to look at it as data and then decide what meaning I want to give it.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with that.
What's that?
I think the problem is that you're trying to pretend that what you're doing is objective when it's not objective. Because you just said it yourself. You want to look at the data and then you decide how you want to evaluate that. Well, the moment that you're evaluating it is the moment it's no longer objective.
Right, but I don't want to judge it before I've had the time to look at it. Like, first I want to look at it as just raw data, and then I can determine what is my preference with it.
That's exactly what I do.
I guess I'm trying to say there is no inherent meaning to anything that occurs. There's nothing inherent to it.
But there doesn't have to be. There doesn't have to be. I don't see any reason why that's even a relevant point. I mean, all of us, including me, we all look at stuff from our own perspectives. That's part of what having a perspective is. And that perspective includes what's important to me and what's not important to me. I mean, I'm not putting this out there in order to be the objective teacher. Here is generally how you apply a law of attraction. That's not my point. My point is I want to understand what's going on with this particular CEO, who, by the way, I did have some interaction with. And I knew something about her. And I knew something about what she was doing. I had a pretty good idea of what she was doing, actually. So I actually did acquire the data. And yes, I ended up drawing my own conclusions about what I thought of what was being done there. When I used the word dismantle, I used that word quite advisedly. There was a lot of really good stuff that was being done within the department that she dismantled. Really good stuff being done. There was also some stuff that was not good, but it was a case, I could tell you quite honestly, it was a case of the baby being thrown out with the bathwater. So I knew that as much as I didn't like what she ended up doing, I knew in some way that was coming back to her. To this day, I don't know how it came back to her. I just knew it had to, because what she was doing was undermining good creation. Okay. So that's my evaluation. Okay. Yeah, I fully admit that's an evaluation. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's mine.
Well, It's your evaluation. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to agree with it. That to me is not an absolute based on law of attraction. The only absolute with law of attraction is that people get the result based on whatever they are broadcasting.
And I'm saying that she did. I just don't know exactly what that result was. We never actually did get to the book again.
You and I have gone down this road several times before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's an underlying distinction in how we view things that I don't think we've been able to ascertain yet.
I think it's a difference in style. I think we just have a stylistically different way of approaching the topic, which is good. Because that's the nature of having different perspectives. Different perspectives bring different value. And that's all really, really good stuff as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's just the way I see it. I just think it's good.
Okay. And I don't have an objection to that. I mean, I'm totally in agreement with, different styles. Don't know what else to do with it.
Okay.
It is that. But it's almost every time we talk on this exact subject, we go down this exact same road.
Of course.
I don't know if you're aware of that or if that even comes to mind.
It. Yeah. Well, again, that's perspectives. Our perspectives mean we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to think a little bit differently. And that's fine. That's a good thing. So, yeah. I experienced that actually with all the co-hosts. I mean, it's one of the most amazing things about doing a podcast where you have 5 different people you do it with, because every perspective is so different. We're all talking about the same subject, but the perspectives make me think about it in entirely different ways every single time that I'm talking to one of you guys. And then I talk to the next person. Now I'm shifting gears. Oh yeah, this is the Cindy conversation. This is the Wendy conversation. This is the Joel conversation. And it's constantly changing like that. I'll be talking to Tom tomorrow, and Tom's a completely different conversation. He's in a different place. He has a different perspective, and it's great. I love it.
Well, it reminds me of a conversation I had with a client the other day, and it's somebody we've had session after session, and so we have a little bit of history now. And she said to me, well, when you asked me why I felt the need to protect myself with such and such person, and as she went on with her question, I went, oh, she actually made a conclusion that because I was questioning her, I was saying that what she did was wrong, when all I was doing was asking her because I wanted to understand her underlying motivation. And it was just fascinating to me how what I said took her down one road of thought, but I actually was going down a completely other road of thought. And had she not brought that up, we wouldn't have found that she was actually holding on to a perspective that she thought I was saying, which is completely not what I was saying. I was just trying to get under the hood and find out what was going on. And she thought I was saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. And I was like, wow, so how can I shift that? So I was just thinking about how I can change how I language things instead of just going straight for, so why did you do that? Which is kind of my direct style. I could say, I'm just curious because I want to understand the motivation, what's behind that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just curious. And that could have probably set her in a better path to have not just made the conclusion of what I was trying to explain by misinterpreting me. And sometimes I think that's what you and I do. It's like, sometimes I think I'm too direct, and I'm going to see if I can find a way to be more articulate and to get under the hood. Because really, when you're talking, I'm curious, Walt. I'm curious as to what you're really wanting to present, and I'm not always certain. And so I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
I am not fixed in who I am. I am always willing to get under my own hood and make some adjustments.
Well, you go then. I tell you. I'm sure it's going to be great. The only thing that I have to say is we can't continue anymore because we're completely out of time. So we'll have to do it again tomorrow. Sound good to you?
All right. I'm going to be here tomorrow. Let's continue this. This is
and
fun.
I will be as well. We'll see you as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.